Hello, welcome to my recycled art presentation. My name is Thieleke. I'm currently the art teacher at Rockdale County High School. I've been there for about 5 years, but I have taught elementary and middle school art over the last 20 years. I'm an artist first, but an environmentalist second, so I absolutely love combining both of my passions and making art out of recycled materials. And so I've, over the course of the years, I've found some kind of tried and true projects that I come back to, and that's what I'm going to be showing you in this presentation. So these first couple of slides are just some art pieces that I've made in my spare time. I enjoy doing, abstract and non-objective pieces, and I just like to collect interesting papers. I've used paper swatches from, Home Depot and Lowe's, old stamps. I believe there's Piggly Wiggly stamps in one of these pieces. Leftover Christmas cards, birthday cards, wrapping paper, all sorts of things like that, and just kind of cut interesting shapes, overlap them, and put them together. I've also liked to combine them with some acrylic paint, with some, Posca paint pens, with fabric scraps even. And these are a couple pieces. A couple of these are finished, and a couple of them are works in progress. Now, where do I find recycled materials in Georgia? There's really a lot of resources available to us. Lately, I've found a lot of things from Facebook Marketplace. There's a lot of people that are just kind of really wanting to clean up spaces, and they'll give things away for very cheap or even sometimes free. Free Cycle is another source like this. This is for people probably living in the greater Atlanta area, but there's a website and people post things that they're either giving away or that they're willing to trade. I haven't made use of that, but I've heard good reviews about that. Another store that I love to go to is called Scraplanta. It's a craft reuse store in Decatur. It's just wonderful. You can sell your old art supplies that are half used or gently used, and you can fill a cardboard box for like $20. They have special sales all throughout the year. They're open kind of Thursday through Sunday, but really have really helped me replenish some basic art supplies throughout the year. My son lives in Savannah, so when I'm down there, I go to Starlandia Art Supply, and this is kind of a wonderful place because SCAD students are selling back some of the materials from classes that they no longer need, and so it's a great place to get portfolios and some a little bit more sophisticated used art supplies. Another source I go to is the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials, also known as CHARM, in Athens. There's one in Atlanta as well, but the one in Athens has a teacher reuse store, and it's actually not really a store. They give everything away for free. So there's some wonderful resources left over from the University of Georgia and the public schools in that area. And they have furniture as well as like magazines and books and lots of miscellaneous items that are really useful. If you're living in Northeast Georgia, there is the Recraft Craft Reuse Store, which is technically in South Carolina, but not too long of a drive for people close to the border, which is similar to Scraplanta. But also just any good thrift store, Goodwill, Value Village. I've found lots of yarn, lots of scrap fabric, sometimes in the form of pillowcases and sheets. Also, you can just make a wish list and kind of send this out to parents, to colleagues, and you can, I can see that not your friends, not your fiends. There, I got a little typo. But really, lots of people in your circle probably have some things that they purchase that they really aren't going to end up using. And if you let them know what you need, like shoe boxes, magazines, things like that, you can really accumulate a lot of things that way. And then, of course, I visit yard sales, estate sales, and another really special event in Atlanta is called Zero Landfill. And this was put together by a lot of local design firms. It's near Peachtree Industrial. And basically, a lot of those companies get fabric samples, tile samples that, maybe are good for a couple years, but eventually those products get discontinued, and they were originally just throwing those products away. and they decided it was kind of a shame because, lots of them are beautiful fabrics or beautiful tiles. And so they started coordinating event. Usually it's either one weekend or 2 weekends in August, and they promote it. And people can just go there and kind of take like a truckload away of tiles, fabrics, things like that. And that's where I've gotten most of my scrap fabric. Okay, so this is an activity probably geared towards elementary students, but I've even adapted it and done it with like my high school art club. Great way of using some of those monochromatic paint swatches from some of the hardware stores. We just used some black construction paper, scissors, glue sticks, liquid glue to just kind of make some fun little Halloween crafts. Now the way that my presentation is going to go, I'm going to show some picture examples. I'll have a slide that says some of the materials we use, but I'm going to go through that part kind of quickly because you can just stop that if you need to see what some of the supplies were that we used. This is another kind of holiday theme one. We did gingerbread houses. I just saved cardboard throughout the year, cut some of those shapes and with the paper cutter. A few of my students got creative and embellished it and cut some more unique designs with their scissors, but it's pretty hard to cut cardboard with scissors, so I do like to trace out some simple shapes and just do it with the paper cutter. Then we decorated it with like Posca paint pens. You could use any acrylic paint pen, a little bit of Prismacolor pencils as well. Then we did a little paper punch, or sometimes I use a little safety pin to punch a hole, push a little toothpick through there to kind of widen the hole, and then put some string through there so that it could be used like an ornament. And again, that's our little list of supplies. Another unit that I do every so many years, I try to do a Lunar New Year unit. And I did this last year. So last year was the year of the rabbit. And one thing that I've just gotten a lot of donations of over the last couple of years are envelopes. I think with so many things being converted into digital format and being sent through email, a lot of us have a lot of old paper envelopes and now less of a need for them. And so we just created little bunnies, put little messages on there. And then we had an extra fun use that we use these for, which I'll show you in another slide. But so in our Lunar New Year unit, we had actually hired some Chinese lion dancers to come perform at our school. And as is customary in the Lunar New Year, you're supposed to feed the lion some money, kind of as payment and sort of to ensure that you'll have a prosperous new year. And so I was really paying the dancers for coming, but I gave some of my students those little bunny envelopes and we filled them with cash and we fed the lion that way. So hopefully I can get my video to play. But this is just a video of the students feeding the lion with the little bunny envelopes. That's how they got their payment and their tip. So they had a good time doing that as well. Okay, so another fun activity we do is make little robots out of metal scrap. So I just keep a bin all year long and I put bottle caps, paper clips, washers, nuts, bolts. I'm known to pick some things up off the ground, wire, just a couple things like that. And usually we use kind of a super glue to glue these together. Lots of times we put pretty strong magnets on the back so that they could, stick to refrigerators and things like that. So these are some of the little creative things that students have made. And the glue that I do like to use is called E6000. They come in really small containers, and which is really nice because sometimes it's easy to super glue the lid right back onto a glue bottle, but just a nice small amount. And the glue sets up roughly in about an hour. It's really completely set up in 24 hours. But while the kids are working with it, it's really great because you can wiggle things around for a little bit. You have quite a few minutes to move it around and get it in place before it sets up, and then it really does just wash off with soap and water. So it's really my favorite super glue to work with. Now, another thing we've done is kind of creative color wheels. And so I always save magazines or ask my dentist for his old magazines. And my students, could work alone or they could work in groups, but they sort of either made a color wheel or kind of showed the order, the rainbow order in various formats, and just had to kind of do it in a unique format. So these are some really great examples that some of my students did. Of course, you could use, catalogs and junk mail as well, or any kind of construction paper scraps. And these were some more examples that the students made. So I remember we did this in the fall, so we did get quite a few jack-o'-lanterns and pumpkins. But some students just picked simple shapes. Some really, did little creatures and animals, stars and moons and things like that. So it was a really fun unit. And these were really quite large. I would say some of them were about 2 and 3 feet in diameter or width. Another one I love to do is some decoupage glass jars. And so the materials you'll need for this would be like a glass jar. I do like kind of soak them in water and really get those labels off, and I use Gooby Gone to get some of the adhesive from the labels off as well, and run it through the dishwasher sometimes. So there's a little bit of cleaning involved. But after that, the students usually use tissue paper, and tissue paper is real easy and affordable to come by. And lots of times we're using little pieces, so you can use remnants of that as well. And you could use just school glue, Elmer's glue. You could use Mod Podge. But basically, what you're going to do is, use use kind of a watered down glue, and just spread a little bit with a paintbrush directly on the jar. You'll cut out your tissue paper or rip it, lay it on that thin layer of glue, and then you brush another layer of your glue or your watered down glue mixture, just on top of the tissue paper, and that sort of seals it and sort of waterproofs it. I give my students a little tea light candle that they can take home. And these images on the left are kind of during the daytime, but then the ones on the right kind of show them at nighttime, and they're really quite nice at nighttime. You can do a gloss finish, or you can do a matte finish. I sort of like the matte finish and giving it kind of a papery thing. And it's fun to do like a really big jar, like a big pickle jar with that. So there's our supplies again. And then these are just some more examples that we've done, maybe around Valentine's or in the summer, and just some examples that just kind of show the translucency through the window, or, with the candlelight. And this is just some more. I've done this many times, and these are some of them in the display case. It doesn't really show it in this picture, but first thing in the morning, this display case gets some really nice sunlight from our front lobby at our school. And so it looks pretty different in the morning than it does in the afternoon. But they, really kind of showcases all the creative ideas that people came up with when we did this. All right, another more recent activity I did this when I had a unit, Art Around the World theme for the year for the curriculum. And then the unit was a Pacific Northwest Native American totems. And so we saved toilet paper tubes, paper towel tubes, wrapping paper tubes, and the students could work alone, or they could work with a team, and they could stack things up if they want to. More students did actually choose to work alone on this. They could do any kind of combination of using construction paper, color cardstock to kind of create the shape. They could also use Posca paint pens or colored pencils. Some of them would, kind of draw first while the paper was flat, and then adhere it later. They were required to have a couple three-dimensional elements on this. So, so lots of times they chose wings or beaks and things like that, claws, to do that. And then we also really did kind of study some of the stylistic qualities that Pacific Northwest Native Americans would use in their art, and some of the animals that they, revered and would use in their art practices. Again, there's our list of supplies. And then these are some more examples. These were more of the paper towel examples. And anyway, just ended up being a really fun unit. Sometimes I feared when I, working with high schoolers, giving them something like a toilet paper tube, that they're not going to take it very seriously. And I was really pleasantly surprised when we did this, and I felt like the students really did. And one of these students, and kind of in the bottom left here, they made use of like paper quilling, which is an art form that I had taught a year before, and I hadn't considered it at all for this, but I thought that was a really creative use of it. Another unit we did with our Art Around the World curriculum, we did a Dia de Muertos unit celebrating Mexican art. And one thing that we studied was the kind of making of ofrendas, which traditionally families honor a loved one that has passed away the end of October, early November. I believe it's a 3 day celebration. And usually on the table, they put a photo of the loved one, put candles, flowers, lots of times marigolds. Sometimes they put some of that person's favorite objects, maybe a hat that they wore, or maybe something that's symbolic of their hobbies, something like that. And I know I had a student that said that they make one every year at their house, and it's for their grandfather, and their grandfather was kind of ornery, and when people would come to his house, he would always hide one of their shoes, so it would take them a while to before they could go home to find their other shoe. And so on their friend every year, they'd put just one shoe, not the entire both pairs of shoes. So this was a particular one that a student of mine had made, and she had done a cathedral, and then on the inside dedicated hers to, I believe it was a historical figure, but I don't remember what it was. But they just did a phenomenal job. This, kind of incorporating the marigolds and the foods and the things like that. And the picture on the left is the shoebox closed up and then it's opened up. Oh, and so that is, I should say that too, is this is how it's recycled. We would use shoe boxes rather than big tables to make our altars or ofrendas. And so it was kind of making a little altar on a smaller scale. And we used a little bit of cardboard as well and found objects to create these. Again, these are some of the materials that we'd use. Scrap ribbon and scrap fabric came very in handy for this as well. And then this was another one. This was done by a group of 3 or 4 students. And my students, again, they could honor anyone that had passed away. So it could be a loved one, it could be a celebrity, it could be a historical figure. This particular group really loved David Bowie. And so they worked together to kind of decorate the shoebox. They kind of gave it a, kind of a rooftop. Some of the images had to do with particular songs or some of the makeup or stage costumes that he had. Other ones had to do with, just where he was from and places that he had performed. But this was just a really fun example of a very creative shoebox ofrenda that they did. This particular project, I taught both embroidery and applique, and I do find a few embroidery hoops here and there at the thrift stores and at Scraplanta, but I did have to buy quite a few new. But the fabric was almost entirely from zero landfill, and from thrift stores and pillowcases and things like that. And sometimes I even, old clothes of mine that if they're cute, but they've got a rip or something, I just toss them into my fabric scrap bin. And so the students the background fabrics were upcycled or scrap material. And then I think we did primarily buy new embroidery floss, although you can also find that at some of these craft reuse stores as well. And taught the students some basic sewing skills, how to do buttons, and some simple stitches like straight stitches or cross stitches. And anyway, they had a lot of fun with this. So it really doesn't take a lot of expertise with sewing. They look a hot mess on the back, but they look really great on the front. So again, there's our list of some of the supplies. Oh, and buttons are another great thing to find at some of the thrift stores and the craft reuse stores as well. But these are just more examples that students made. And I do believe we did this near February based on the number of kind of Valentine's themed results that we got here. But again, just some more great examples. I always seem to have a lot of kids that are into the Nightmare Before Christmas and things like that. But it was a really fun activity. And then finally, one of the last things I like to do at the end of the year is kind of make customized end of the year awards. I like to make kind of one of a kind certificates that are, not necessarily something that you would similar to what you would find at a store. And then for my seniors in particular, and for my, overachievers that have just really been super dedicated to their practice and things like that, I like to sew some little homemade ribbons. And I use a combination of some of the fabrics from Zero Landfill and my scrap bin and just ribbon left over from birthday and Christmas and whatnot. And it's really nice because you can make use of some really pretty short pieces of ribbon that would otherwise be hard to use. And we just kind of layer little layers of circle fabrics. Sometimes I put a little button on there and stitch it all together like that and make some little, you know, little flaps at the bottom. And we just kind of attach a little safety pin on the back. And I really kind of just make them based on what scrap material we have left over. And then when I'm, picking awards and, kind of selecting students, then I kind of look at my stash of ribbons that I have and kind of think about colors that I think sort of symbolize that person or that I associate with them. And then I, kind of award them at our little end of the year award ceremonies. And it's just quite fun to give them something artistic and recycled. And sometimes the materials come from something that the students have used at school. So that makes it extra special fun as well. And that concludes my presentation on recycled art materials. Hopefully that's inspirational to you and you can make use of some of the materials that you have lying around in your home or in your classroom with your students. Thank you.